Hi, my name is Sean Tenner. I'm the Democratic committeeman for the 46th Ward of Chicago, which includes Wrigleyville, Buena Park, Lakeview, and Uptown. And I'm thrilled to be here as part of the 80, which is our series of interviews with the endorsed Democratic candidates for the 2022 June Democratic primary. And I'm here with Judge Dominique Ross, who's been a constant presence on the campaign trail over the past year. She's in every ward, every township, every neighborhood. I don't think I've ever seen anybody work quite so hard. So it's great that she's taken a few minutes out to talk to us here at the Democratic Party about her background and her campaign. So Judge, I was just noticing the beautiful Picasso statue in your Zoom background. You had mentioned to me earlier, it reminds you of where it all began at the Daly Center. So.
Right, where it all began. And when we first started using Zoom, I said, well, let me get a background that reminds me of the Daly Center. And so I came across this one, and it has been my background ever since.
So I think what a lot of viewers would like to understand is what is the difference between circuit court, where we have all these vacancies and all these judges running, and appellate court, where we just have 2 openings. And you've been spending, the better part of a year on the campaign trail to try to win this position. So let everybody know, what is the difference between circuit court and appellate court, and why do you want this job?
All right. Well, in Illinois, we have 3 levels of the judiciary. It's the circuit court, the appellate court, and the Illinois Supreme Court. I currently sit on the Cook County Circuit Court, and that is the first level. And that's where all initial complaints are filed. If it's a criminal case, that's where all the initial charges are filed, and the case is adjudicated on that first level. If at the end of the trial or hearing, or however the case is disposed of, if one party, whether it be the plaintiff or the defendant, petitioner or the respondent, one person can file an appeal. Actually, both sides could file an appeal if there are several issues within the case, and they can file an appeal. And so the appellate court is very important, because that is the one case, the one level of the judiciary that must hear the appeal. So it is a set of second chances, a different set of eyes reviewing the court's decision from the onset. And
so you're saying that in every case, no matter how large or small, either side has the opportunity to bring their case up to the appellate court for review.
That is correct, unless of course they settle, which at that point we would imagine that everybody was at least satisfied or could live with what the judgment was. But this is when the judge or the jury makes the decision. You can file an appeal.
So what percentage of cases go on to the appellate court? Is it large?
It is a large percentage. I understand it's as high as 80% in criminal cases. I'm in the domestic relations division, and we have a very high amount of cases that go before the appellate court too. So it is a large number of cases, and it could just be one issue on appeal throughout the entire case. It just depends on the issues that were set forth in the circuit court.
Okay. And how many members of the appellate court are there in Cook County?
There are 24 in Cook County.
Okay.
And how we're set up is that there has to be a panel of 3 judges. There's always one alternate, and there are 6 divisions. So that completes the 24. But of those who sit on the panel, it is only 3 that are hearing the case, and 2 have to come to a consensus as to whether or not to send that case back for further hearing, to reverse it, or to affirm the circuit court.
And roughly how many cases are overturned or sent back? Is it a large number, or does the appellate court typically defer to the judgment of the circuit court?
In most cases, and this is what is stated when a case goes up on appeal, is that the appellate court is going to defer to the circuit court judge. So unless there has been an abuse of discretion, a misapplication of the law, or something that should have been let in or not let in, then that case would go back. But just generally speaking, the appellate court is going to defer.
So I've heard over the years that the work of the appellate court justice is very different from the work of the circuit court judge, the trial court judge. It's, as I understand it, it's a lot of research. It's a lot of writing. It's not the day-to-day give and take in the courtroom. And I've heard it's a very demanding position, and one that requires an excellent legal mind. What is it about the position that appeals to you?
What appeals to me is the resolution. As a circuit court judge, I resolve cases for people on a personal day-to-day basis, and it affects only that particular family. Whereas on the appellate court, you have the ability to affect the lives of all Illinoisans, because when a case is published, we have what's called a Rule 23, and that does direct to that particular case. But in the event that there is a case that is published, that case is going to affect everyone in the first district, which sits wholly in Cook County. And if the matter has not been heard by an appellate court in a different division, in a different district, then that district will also follow what the Cook County district has heard and ruled upon. And so what is different, and I'm ready for the task, is that I hear cases. I added it up, and I said on average, I have disposed of over 5,000 cases in my career.
Wow. Do you remember every one of them?
Some of them do stick out, and I will remember people, but I tell people, if I remember you, that's not usually a good thing. Right. So when you hear it on the appellate court, you're reviewing the entire record of the circuit court. And that goes from the orders that were entered, any type of dispositions that were made on a temporary basis. And if it actually goes to trial or to hearing, hopefully there is a court reporter and you review that record. So luckily for us, we're not a one-man band, although sometimes in the circuit court that can be the case, but we do have researchers. But I'm a hands-on judge, and I will do my research and I will look for cases on my own. But on the appellate court level, you do have staff and researchers who are looking at the different issues. And basically the appellate court judge is looking and making notes and comparing how does this apply to the particular set of facts that are brought before the court. And you don't have the day-to-day interaction with the public. However, there are days where oral arguments are heard, and you will either have the self-represented litigant to present, or you will have an attorney to represent both sides.
So I've noticed in the newspapers a lot, there has been coverage of the appellate court rulings from a judge downstate that have to do with COVID mitigations and mask mandates. So I think the appellate court has been in the news quite a bit on that issue. And I noticed that in your biography that you sit on the COVID response, the post-pandemic committee. So you've been in a leadership role in ensuring that the courts have been able to transition in and out of COVID protocols. That must be quite an ordeal.
Right, mainly for the Domestic Relations Division. Our presiding judge, Grace Dickler, she put that program together, and it basically is gauging what the numbers are, how people feel as far as their level of comfort in coming back. But one thing that I will say about the Domestic Relations Division is that even when we were at the height of COVID, we never shut down. There
Right.
was somebody available on an emergency basis to hear emergencies. Now, the day-to-day might have gotten pushed out for 30 days at first, then it was 60 days, then people were like, oh, this is going to be here for a while. And then we started a rotation, but the court wheels never stop turning. And so at this point now, there is no mandate for us to come back. However, I personally have taken it upon myself that if a case is contentious enough and we have volumes of documents that may or may not be entered into evidence, or there are multiple witnesses, Zoom has its place, and I'm grateful for Zoom, and I'm sure everybody is grateful for Zoom, but some things you have to have that piece of paper in your hand. You have to be able to look at that witness, that litigant, and one of our jobs is to look at their demeanor and look at how they come across. And that is one of the things that we are charged with when we are hearing a case. So I prefer for those cases to be in person. Now, if somebody has a very strong objection to it, I am not going to force that issue. And we will either continue that case or we will attempt to do it via Zoom.
Well, I think the court system deserves a tremendous amount of credit for the way they've handled, excuse me, for the way they've handled COVID since the beginning. I mean, I've heard that sort of informal surveys of attorneys and judges generally give high marks, and litigants generally give high marks to how the court system has operated. And you know, I have friends who are judges who also work on domestic violence issues, domestic relations, and absolutely, it would have been impossible to cease operations. I mean, COVID, of course, is still with us, but in the thick of things, you had these increases in domestic violence, increase in the need for orders of protection. It would have been impossible for the court system to shut down. I mean, those increases meant that the judges and the attorneys were needed then more than ever. So it is a credit to you that things were able to keep flowing. And you know, before we go, I just wanted to ask about one item of your resume that I found particularly interesting was your work with CLAIM, Chicago Legal Advocacy for Incarcerated Mothers. That sounds like a very needed and fascinating program. Could you just tell us a little bit about that?
That was a program that I worked on pretty much straight out of law school. And it was a program that was designed to help women to re-enter into society after they were incarcerated and to deal with the issues with their children, as well as to help them deal with the issues while they were incarcerated. So my involvement was mainly in a group discussion and answering questions, and many of the women there had legal questions. And so that was the extent of my involvement. As I moved on in my career, that was probably, I would change the different focuses. I became very active in the Illinois Judicial Council, and the Illinois Judicial Council is the council of judges that is comprised mainly of African-American judges to address the issues that are faced by African-American judges and just what's going on in the community. So I took up the mantle of being the scholarship chair.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, and so I was very proud of that work. And basically, it was to give scholarships to Illinois law students who had overcome certain obstacles and were still pursuing their academic careers and endeavors to become an attorney. And sometimes people need a little bit of help. So it was based on academic progress, obstacles, and their community service. So I served on that committee for probably about 4 or 5 years. I was the president of that organization and a board member, and I continue to serve on that because what the goal of the Illinois Judicial Council, as I stated, that is the mission, was to address certain issues, but it's also to go out into the community and let people see, especially young children, what they can be. We have a program that's called Robes in the Classroom, whereas all of the judges will go to the different high schools and talk to the students either on career day or just to have them ask questions. So that is some of the work that I continue to participate in, and I'm very proud of the work that the IJC does and my role in it.
I am a tremendous fan of the Illinois Judicial Council. As you know, I've worked on anti-trafficking, anti-slavery programs in West Africa, and on numerous occasions they've hosted speakers from Mauritania to address the entire body. And IJC will be hosting an event with our leaders from Mauritania on the 21st as well. I proudly wear my IJC cufflinks whenever I can.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I want everybody to learn how they can reach you, how they can learn more about your campaign, what's your punch number. So let our viewers know how they can learn more about you before they go and vote.
I am Judge Dominique C. Ross for the Illinois Appellate Court, vacancy of Hall. You can reach me at Ross4Justice, and that's the number 4, Ross4Justice.com. And my punch number is 152. 152 for you.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know you'll be successful on Election Day and look forward to seeing you out on the campaign trail soon.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take care.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.